Welcome back to Redefining Love. I am your host, Tara Portelli. And on today's episode, I have such a special story for you. A story about loss, about having to be in the depths of that darkness and then rebuilding, which for many people can be such a scary thought. I think that a lot of people stay in this state of fear. We fear loss, we fear financial ruin, we fear lack. But the truth is that when you're in those moments, when you're in that darkness, that is the most profound growth within yourself you will ever go through. And it can lead you down a really beautiful path, one that you never could have imagined. I actually get goosebumps when I think about this for myself. You know, I jumped off a cliff. I lost my dog and my husband in the same week. And I sat alone in my house trying to rebuild my whole life just on an air mattress in between four walls. And I share that story with you. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. I want to talk about healing. This healing that we keep hearing. Healing our traumas. Healing the wounds that we've been carrying with us that are playing out in our adult life. And I get goosebumps as I talk about this because I think about my journey. I think about the challenges that I overcame to get to this point. We all have challenges. And every single challenge that you have been through in your life was not an accident. These challenges were meant for us to grow. They are the sandpaper that they shape us. And even in those moments where you feel really weak, where you want to give up, something beautiful will come up. You'll understand why that challenge had to happen. The gift will reveal itself. And in my life, I've recognized that there's patterns of these challenges that show themselves, and maybe something falls apart, like a relationship, or maybe loss. And every time this happens, you're forced to go inwards into the depths of your darkness, of the sadness of that loss. And when you go in, caterpillar, becoming a butterfly, that is transforming inside a cocoon. And you just got to know that every single time you come out of that darkness, that there's going to be more light, that something beautiful is going to happen. So when I left my marriage in 2018, as somebody that never wanted to ever be divorced, that forced her partner to go to premarital counseling to work through any issues we were having. And 18 months later, after getting married, I realized that I can't go on after a 7-year relationship. After that ended, after I realized that I finally chose myself, after giving myself away for everybody else for the majority of my life, I realized that I had made the best decision I could have ever made, even though he was my best friend, even though I still loved him. But it just wasn't aligned anymore. It needed separation so I could grow, because he wasn't ready to grow. He wasn't ready to do his own inner work. And fast forward 4 years later, I received a message from him where he finally had his moment his breaking point that forced him inwards, and that he was growing, and that he had recognized, why we didn't work out. Now, after my marriage ended, and in that same week that we closed our house and we said our goodbyes, my dog of 10 years, a rescue that followed me home, passed away all at the same time. I remember sitting in my house that I had bought him out of, this rental house that we had that I absolutely loved. It was this beautiful old century home that I used as my own healing. Because every weekend as we were going through our separation, I would go down to this house, I would blow up an air mattress, and I would sit between the empty walls, imagining my life, living there by myself. And all the while, transforming that home, learning how to rip up carpet and paint out hardwood floors, how to change light fixtures by myself. I painted every wall, and all the while, with every wall and every moment that I spent painting and transforming this house that was going to become my healing sanctuary for myself after my loss, I would sit there, tears streaming down my face as I processed what was happening. And I realized that I was choosing me for the first time. I was choosing Tara. And sometimes we have to make those choices, even though we love the person, even though they're our best friend. But when it's not working, when one person is growing and expanding and the other person isn't ready to do that, we have to make a decision. And this is what I did. It was the very first time that I ever chose me, despite the humiliation, all the people that came to our wedding, despite the sadness of the separation or selling the home that we thought we were going to build a life in. I had no idea what was on the other side of that decision, but what I knew is that I couldn't stay in that relationship anymore. And I made the choice. And the moment I made that choice and I started to heal and I started down that path and that journey, when I sat in that house that I had just renovated by myself without the dogs, because one dog went with him and the other one passed away. Without him, it was just me by myself every night, alone with my thoughts and my feelings and my sadness and my grief that simultaneously existed in this place of hope and relief and inspiration. And so it's paradoxical, because without the mud, there is no lotus, as Stitch Not Hay says in the book, No Mud, No Lotus. And so the way that I truly solidified that healing journey was I decided to take a trip by myself, something I'd never really done. I'd always traveled alone, but I was always meeting someone or going somewhere with somebody. But this was the first time I was ever really going to embark on this true journey by myself. And I ended up in Tulum, Mexico, where I live now. This place has offered me so much healing, So much joy, so much pain, so much transformation. I'm so grateful for this place on so many levels. And so I ended up on the beach of Tulum, Mexico. I was walking with my camera and I was taking photos. I really let this trip unfold for me. It was a trip of growth, expansive growth. Just sitting in a restaurant alone eating a meal by myself was a big challenge at that time. And I did it. And I was looking around, I'm like, who's looking at me? This is weird. Like, these people are going to wonder why I'm alone. And at the end of the day, nobody's really paying attention. It's just you and your thoughts and yourself. You're the only one who's noticing that you're alone. And I overcame myself in these uncomfortable feelings over and over and over again in that trip. One of those uncomfortable feelings was when I met this man as I was walking down the beach taking photos. And he was on a kiteboard and I was getting the best shots of him. And he saw me with the camera and I thought to myself, I'm going to sit down and I want to get these photos to this person. So I sat down. And of course, as I'm thinking that, he's swooping in on his kiteboard. So he swoops in and he's there in front of me. And I said, listen, I have these great shots of you and I would just absolutely love to get these to you. So we exchanged emails. That afternoon, I received an email from him and he said, you're the nude mushroom. Because my email was Nude Mushroom and I was writing a health and wellness blog at the time called The Nude Mushroom, pre-psychedelics. That's synchronicity for you. And he says, mushrooms healed my life. We were meant to meet, so let's meet at my business. So I went and I met him at his business. We talked about how he had been through suicide headaches for 25 years. And for those of you that don't know, suicide headaches are these headaches that they say are the most painful experience you could ever have before you die. They explain it like as if you're putting a drill in your eye and you're going around and around and your head is going to explode. And that's actually what these feel like. And because they're so painful, people actually will take their life. And that's why they're called suicide headaches, also known as cluster headaches. And he had suffered for 25 years with these. And he said to me, I took the mushrooms and I never had a headache again. He's like, after all the therapies, after all the research, after everything I ever tried in 25 years, this was the only thing that helped me. And it was a gift. And he took the mushrooms and he started helping other people who were struggling with suicide headaches. And he became essentially what I like to refer as a mushroom healer. And he gifted me with some mushrooms. And in my mind, I was like, I'm good. Like, I'm just working through my grief, but like, I don't really need these. And I was like, listen, like, I don't really need these. Like, how am I supposed to take these? I'm going to do this by myself. Like, I don't really want to do this experience. And he's like, listen, I didn't give you enough to go to the dark side. Just love, trust. It's beautiful medicine. It's very healing. Just trust it. For some reason, I trusted him. And so I decided to go to this beach that someone had told me about at a hotel. And I took a bicycle and I rode there 9 kilometers. And I decided if I get to this beach and it doesn't feel aligned for me to take these mushrooms on this beach, that I'm not going to do it. I ended up telling one person that I knew wouldn't talk me out of it about the experience so that I could have a safety plan, and trusted that it wasn't enough to go to the dark side. And I went to this beach and there was nobody on it. And I was like, this is the perfect place for me to do this. I don't recommend doing it alone because, again, you don't know how sensitive you're going to become to this experience, but I did do it alone. And I had the mushroom healer on the other end of my phone in case I needed anything. And I went into the experience and it changed my life. That day changed my life. Changed my path. It changed the relationship I had with myself. It gave me the opportunity to feel self-love for the very first time ever, because the mushroom allows you to soften, to get rid of your hard ego that's protecting you, to understand that we're all connected. We're connected to nature. We're connected to each other. We're all energy. We're here for our own reasons, for our own missions, individual missions. And it showed me so many things about myself, about others in my life. And I validated all of it, and it was all true. So this was the most mystical experience I had ever had. I had read about spiritual books. I had read so many of them. I wanted to feel connected. I wanted to believe it. And this was the first time I ever dropped in and I heard it. And the first thing it said to me was, you were so loved and supported by the universe. And coming from a girl who was curled up in her bed at night as a child, listening to the fighting outside of her door. This was such an important message, because I never had a foundation that I could trust, that I could feel grounded in, and I finally felt supported. I wasn't alone here. I always knew that there was more, but I finally felt like I wasn't alone here. And so that brings me to a reading I want to do from my book called Nude. My book is about the 8 most profound experiences I've had in my life in the dark that has been the catalyst to my change, to my growth, and my evolution to this point. Going from an insecure, hopeless romantic, going through relationship after relationship in the same patterns, to standing in my power alone now for almost 7 years. So even though my heart wants love outside of myself, because I feel it within, I'm still not willing to sacrifice my own self for a relationship that isn't aligned. And so that's the power that you can get when you do this inner work. You can stand in your power, and you can choose who comes into your life and who leaves. You are the queen or king of your life. You get to decide who walks in and who walks out. You're in control of that. And when you love yourself and value yourself and know you're doing the hard things and the hard work inside, you're not going to let anybody take that away from you. And so this book is all about my journey. And it's also a prescriptive memoir where it offers you these exercises you can do in your own life so you can see your own patterns and you can understand in your own path what the gifts were and why those things that happened to you were necessary to bring you to this point. Like I said from the beginning, this is the sandpaper that shapes us. These difficulties that we have to go through. No mun, no lotus. So I'm going to read you one part of my book when I went into my mushroom journey that I had written about. Putting on my glasses. It's what happens when you get into your 40s. So it's chapter 18, My Awakening. As I sat on the most incredible beach I had ever stepped foot on, settling comfortably on a beach pillow with echoes of the ocean's waves crashing against the shore, I began my dose. I found my truth, and I began to understand the meaning behind my human existence. Slowly, I endured the most beautiful, incredible, and transformational experience I could have ever imagined. It was after turning my life upside down that I started down a path of restarting, that I felt this deep calling to travel alone. This was one of the most profound and life-changing decisions I could have ever made for myself. I didn't choose to go to Tulum, a tropical paradise in Mexico. Tulum seemed to choose me. Or maybe I stumbled on the path, and the path took me there. After the release of my marriage as a result of Ben's very timely presence in my life, I started to become more curious. You'll have to read the book to find out who Ben is. These concepts about life energy, synchronicity became part of my everyday awareness. I began to ask questions, and the answers showed themselves. Sometimes it was just as simple as opening up a book that had sat on a shelf for 20 years, only to land on the right page with the right answer to the question I was thinking. It started to feel as if the world around me was sending me messages all the time. Something I had never been aware of, and oftentimes I just shook my head at, in the irony of these synchronicities. I realized that I had been so distracted at helping others navigate their own lives, then I had become deaf and blind to the magic of my own. Now I began to connect with the spiritual realm, helping me to access deep-seated wisdom and knowing within myself what was always there. I started dabbling with mediums and getting messages from deceased relatives that gave me great peace in my heart and a knowing I was not alone. They told me things about my life that only I could have known, such as the one time I was making pineapple macadamia nut balls in my kitchen. My Grammy, who had passed away in 2010, came through on a medium reading, like something out of the movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg. The medium shared that she was quite pushy to get in front of and send you a message. She wanted to tell you that those balls were so good. You need to patent them. Of course, my jaw dropped on the floor as I flashed back to the memory of my baking in the kitchen, imagining that my grandmother was right there with me. So this is just one little part of that chapter of my book. And this journey has been a roller coaster ride of ups and downs and ins and outs and positive and negative, although we do attach meaning to positive and negative because essentially it's all perfect because there's no mistakes. So I hope on your journey, as you're going through your own healing, as you're navigating your own relationships, as you're going into the depths of what feels like loneliness, isolation, sadness, unfulfillment, that you realize that this is just a moment in time, and that at every moment you get to choose if you're going to do it different next time. Every time you go through that pattern with a toxic relationship or a relationship that no longer serves you, you get to choose if you're going to wake up next day with that person, if you're going to allow yourself to continue in that pattern. So I hope that there's something here for you. I hope that you do take the steps into your own healing journey so that you can make space for the things that were meant for you here in this human form. And I'm always here as a guide. A lot of people take my Pain to Empowerment course, really start to recognize themselves in a different perspective and can move through their challenges with so much more ease and adversity. And below, I'm going to put a code if you guys want to try this course for 40% discount. It's a beautiful course, and I put my heart and soul into it. It's a path and a new way of thinking and being in the world that you may have never thought of before. So thank you for listening, and I will see you guys next week.